All right, gang. First of all, thanks for coming to the Excerpt channel and checking out this excerpt, clip, if you will, of an ASP podcast episode from the recent past. So you know it's not a whole episode. Whole episodes are available only on the app in the video form. You can listen anywhere you want, any podcast outlet, listen to the audio version, not a problem. For the video version, if you want to watch the whole thing, get the app. It is literally free to watch on the app. No payment, no subscription required. Go over there, check it out, and I hope you enjoy the clip. Well, alrighty, gang. Welcome back to the Active Self-Protection Podcast. I'm yet again your host, Mike Bulliver, and I remain your favorite former Fed. With me today, a new friend of mine named Zach.
Today's sponsor is Bond, a personal security platform and a very useful tool between everything is fine and calling 911. It's the I'm uncomfortable button that gives you and your loved ones instant on security agents so you're never alone. Bond agents engage and deter perps who want no witnesses. They have a 100% track record deterring crimes of opportunity because it's like installing a can of OC spray on your phone. It's for when you can't carry tools and for your loved ones who won't. Check out Bond's special ASP discount at the link below.
Zach is in Indianapolis, Indiana, where I was last year for the NRA meeting. By the way, I have some stories about Indy, not just in case we have time at the end of this. He works for the Department of Veterans Affairs, and he's kind enough to write in and share a story with us, a pretty harrowing one, I might add. So buckle up. Zach, how are you, sir?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing well. Talk to us about your sort of self-defense history. I'll give a spoiler alert. Zach was in fact armed during this encounter, during this incident. So obviously he'd given some thought to his self-defense prior to the incident, and where he worked may have had something to do with that as well. So kind of walk us through your personal history with self-defense. Are you someone who's always been self-defense minded since you were young, or is it something you kind of came around to you more recently or in your adulthood?
Yeah. So my parents got divorced when I was in like second or third grade. And my dad had lived in an apartment on the south side of Indianapolis. And he had he was restarting all that good stuff. So he had a pull-out sofa in the living room of the apartment. And on the other side of that living room was a sliding glass door. Mm-hmm. One night we were in bed and someone tried to break through that door. And he had my grandfather's 38 special, which changed the guy's attitude, and he took off. So ever since then, has always kind of been a major thing. But I spent 9 years in the Army. I was a cavalry scout. So it just kind of came normal part of life to have, some kind of firearm on me and just be ready because things just, my dad once told me, if it's unfortunate, traumatic, and sad, it's going to happen to you. I was like, yeah, you're right. So.
Wow, your dad said that was just you're like a poop magnet or something? Because I know people always like that.
Yeah, it's bad. Okay. A long history of just terrible things. So I just tend to be prepared for just about anything.
You and I could really be friends. So we'll talk more after we're done with this interview right here. But
okay.
So his story, folks, again, a spoiler alert, is going to be about a robbery, and he gave me a quick overview before we started of the robbery, and parts of it. Right up until he fights back anyway, parts of it remind me a lot of mine. It was a commercial enterprise. He got robbed at gunpoint, and I was the one who got a gun pointed at him. You guys have all heard that story before, so I won't really hash it. But talk to us about where you were, what you were doing, and kind of tell a story in your own words. I won't give any more direction than that, Zach.
All right. So I just got out of the Army. My first civilian job, I was a cashier at a liquor store. I got hired on a Tuesday. My first shift was a Wednesday. And the shooting happened my third shift on technically over Saturday night. Wow. So I was on the south side of Indianapolis, and the story starts out kind of weird. This guy came in about 9:00 p.m. and he's arguing with me and the assistant manager about the price of some of the liquor that we've got. And he's demanding to speak to the manager. So we go get the manager. He comes out, and he's like, "Hey, the price is what it is." And he kind of looks at me. He goes, "What time do you guys close?" I said, 1 a.m. I said, "Okay." And he walked out. I didn't think anything of it, just weird, just thought, it was a kind of a Karen situation. And about 12:30, me and the other cashier, it was her second day on the job, by the way. And the manager that we had on that shift was the assistant manager who did not have access to the safe. And who was also very kind to tell me that at the beginning of the shift. He's like, "Hey, just so you know, if you guys screw something up, I can't open that safe. So please don't screw something up."
Right.
So that comes into pretty good piece of information later in the story. So 12:30, we're counting down the drawers. We're getting ready to close. We put there's $150 in each drawer. And I had just dropped the envelope into the safe. is kind of behind this little counter of a wall thing going on. And I hear the doorbell ring saying, there's a customer at the door. And, like a good customer assistant, I stand up and I go to greet the guy, and there's a gun in my face. And this guy's just screaming over and over again. He's like, let's do this. Let's do this. And I was trying to figure out a moment, like when I was like, I had a handgun in my front right pocket, which is, by the way, a horrible, horrible place to carry a handgun. Don't do that. He didn't have the gun trained on me, so to speak, but he was going hard back and forth, like 45-degree angle from me to the other worker that was there with me. And I couldn't get a time. Like, I thought I could pick up on a pattern and pull my handgun out, but he was so random. I couldn't figure it out.
Right.
The manager was on the other side of the building. He was refilling the refrigerator, which is like 40 feet from where we were, and he couldn't see or hear what was going on. He was inside the walk-in freezer or the cooler.
Okay.
And where the guy was standing, I couldn't shoot anyway because I didn't know where that manager was back there, so I didn't have a clear backstop. But the guy kind of solved the problem for me by jumping over the counter. So when he did that, the only thing between me and him was the assistant cashier that was with me. So as he was walking me and the assistant cashier towards the registers, I'm thinking, okay, well, I got to get her out of the way so I can make my shot. It's still kind of a problem. This girl's probably 5'2", maybe 100 pounds. She's tiny. As I figure I'm going to have to shove her out of the way. I'm going to have to do something. But the guy passes both cash registers, and we were going to open them up, and he didn't care. He's kept leading us back towards the office where the main safe was. And in the back of my mind, I was just told, 4 hours ago, we can't open the safe. I can't do what he wants me to do. And he's clearly said, like, as he was walking his bag, he's like, just do what I say and no one gets hurt. And I was like, brother, I'm sorry, man. I can't do what you're going to ask me to do. So, this is not going to end well for anybody.
Now, did you seriously say those words to him, or are you just thinking that in your head?
I'm thinking that in my head. I'm just,
Okay.
and I took him at his word. If I can't do what he wants me to do, he's going to shoot me. And he had this, it was like a 25 caliber Jennings arms, and just kind of disrespectful if you know what that gun is.
Yes, indeed. It's not a high point. Not great.
Yeah. It's the inbred stepsister of the high point. So, but yeah, we were walking back, and I had maybe 4 seconds at most to figure out how I was going to get this done. And the assistant cashier, she had no idea I had a gun on me. And I was thinking, if she walks through that door to the office, I can get her out of the way, come back into the hall and make my shot. But I was like, at the same time, if I screw that up, or, I was afraid if I went to grab her, I'd negligently discharge my handgun when I went to grab her with the gun in my other hand. So I didn't want to do that either.
Gun still in your pocket at this point?
That's in my hand. So as soon as I got through that doorway, I took a side step to the right, and I pulled it out of my pocket. And I knew I had about another second and a half before the assistant cashier got through that doorway. So it probably gave me about another 2.5 seconds before the robber would have been through that door. So for whatever reason, I decided to go Leroy Jenkins on it, and I just popped back in the hallway. I grabbed the assistant cashier by the back of the head, and I intended to throw her through the doorway and get her out of the way and then make my shot. But as I came around, the bottom of my hand hit the top of her shoulder as I discharged my first round. So it put the barrel of my muzzle, or the muzzle of my gun, right next to her ear when it went off in the first round. Oh, so I fired 3 rounds, hit the guy so just to be clear, I never saw the autopsy. I had to go off the word of somebody I trusted that read the report. Mm-hmm. Kind of a glancing blow just below the eye, just above the eye, and then just to the side, like the very corner of the eye is where my first 3 shots hit. But the angle of it, as it was described to me, was basically a ballistic lobotomy.